Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kathleen.
Hello, Brittany. Hi, everyone.
How's everyone doing today? We're very thankful that you're joining us for our pre-arrival webinar. Today we are going to be discussing our self-isolation plan as well as some housing options for when you do arrive in New Brunswick. My name is Brittany. I am the International Affairs Coordinator, and joining me today is Kathleen.
I'm Kathleen. I'm the Immigration Advisor for NBCC.
And we will be your host for today's webinar. So just a couple of housekeeping tips and tricks before we get started. We do want to let everybody know that there is going to be an upcoming registration date. If you've tuned in for our pre-registration or sorry, our pre-arrival webinars before, you've heard us talk about registration, and we're going to keep reminding you guys because it is really important, so bear with us. But there is a mandatory registration that's coming up starting August 17th. And the reason why we have a registration is it lets us know that you're still coming. So you're going to get an email from us that's going to let you know registration's coming up. It's going to give you the steps on how to register. Please make sure that you follow the steps and let us know that you're coming. If you don't let us come in, we will cancel your application. So it's just a way for you to let us know that, yes, I'm still coming. I do still want to be there, and I'm really excited to start in the fall term. Okay. Other than that, today we are going to be going through a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll show everybody my screen momentarily. At the end of the PowerPoint, we will answer some questions, time permitting. So if any questions come up during the presentation with regards to anything that I've talked about or Kathleen has talked about, just type it in the message section and we will get to answer as many questions as we possibly can within the next 45 minutes. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen? Kathleen, can you see my screen?
I can see it, Brittany.
Perfect. That is awesome. So guys, I just want to make sure that you all can see my screen. So you guys have a little option to put your hand up. If you can just put your hand up that you can see my screen, it should say NBCC College Works, and it has all these blue and green colors everywhere, and it says pre-arrival webinar. Just put your hand up, let me know you can see it, and then we'll get started, okay? Perfect. I see a couple hands up there, a couple more. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So like I said, we are going to talk today about our self-isolation plan and our housing options. So within those topics there, we're going to discuss academic delivery and what that means for you as international students. We're going to talk about our self-isolation plan and our required documents, as well as housing. So academic delivery. So for fall 2020, obviously NBCC is trying to balance the new requirements that are put in place for us by our public health office while trying to provide you the best learning opportunities as students of NBCC as possible. So what we have created is a document discussing our academic delivery. So you can find out exactly how your program is going to be delivered on our page. So I have put in the link here and I just want to share it with everybody. So when you go to the What Can I Expect page, this is what you're going to see. So it takes you to our NBCC What Can I Expect? You're going to see a lovely video here that discusses, the different types of options of how the program can be delivered. We're going to talk about the program changes. We answer some frequently asked questions down here at the bottom, but the section that I really want you guys to tune into here is the academic program delivery changes. So if you click on that document right there, it's going to take you to this list. And this list has your program listed here. So I'll zoom in a little bit so everybody can see it. It has the campus as well as the program delivery. So for example, if I'm going into the Administrative Professional Health Services program at the Moncton campus, the entire delivery of my program will be blended. My program starts in September 8th, but my fall term will be online. So Kathleen, do you mind explaining to us the difference of what the blended delivery means and the online delivery means for the fall term as an international student?
Yeah, absolutely. So self-explanatory in the sense that if the fall semester will be entirely online, you won't be required to travel to campus for any component of your program. If, for example, I don't know if we can see one here, down the auto body and collision technician.
Yes.
I'm squinting to try to read it.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I can see it. The fall semester there is blended. And that blended means that there are on-campus components, and those will be communicated to you by your program for you to know what that looks like once those decisions are made. In a immigration perspective, if your program is blended for the fall semester, that means that you are required to be on campus to meet your program requirements. Okay. That requirement obviously means that you need to be in Canada to be on campus. And currently there are travel restrictions to travel to Canada. So one of the criteria that you have to meet is that you have a study permit that was issued or an application that was approved prior to March 18th, 2020. So if you have your study permit and it was issued before March 18th and your program is blended for the fall semester, that's great. You should be planning to travel to Canada in the next month or so. If you have a blended program in the fall semester and your study permit was issued, was approved or issued after March 18th, currently with the current travel restrictions, you aren't eligible to travel to Canada. However, so in that case, you wouldn't be able to meet those program requirements, and you might have to consider deferring your program because you won't be able to be on campus. That being said, the current travel restrictions end on July 31st, which is tomorrow, and we should be hearing tomorrow an announcement about what happens next. If those travel restrictions are extended for another month, or if they are altered in some way. We don't know what's coming, so I would say hold off on making that decision about deferral until we hear about the new travel restrictions, because we don't know what's going to happen or if there might be a little bit more flexibility there. Now, if your program is being delivered fully online in the fall semester and you have the study permit that was issued prior to March 18th, there are two criteria that you have to meet to enter Canada. You have to have that study permit issued before March 18th, and you also have to prove that your presence in Canada is non-optional for your studies, that you have to be here to complete your program requirements. That's easily proven with the blended program because there are on-campus components. But with the online program, that's much more difficult because online components could be completed from anywhere in the world in theory. Now, in practice, you might have really bad internet connections where you live, and that's a compelling reason to enter Canada. To be able to meet those program requirements. If you can't connect to the internet reliably at home, the Canadian government understands that that would be very challenging for you to complete your program. They haven't made any announcements about time zone differences right now as an essential reason to travel. I know it's not appealing to be doing group work or live lectures when you're 12 hours ahead of New Brunswick. But right now, the Canadian government isn't accepting that as an essential reason to be in Canada. So that's something to think about for those that had a study permit issued before March 18th. If you're considering traveling to Canada, the really only reason that the Canadian government is letting students that have their studies completely online enter the country is if you have serious internet issues where you would be completing your studies from. If you have a study permit that has been approved after March 18th and your program is entirely online, you are able to start those studies outside Canada online for the fall term. And NBCC will accept that, and it will also count towards the duration of your post-graduation work permit, that fall semester studying online outside Canada. That's a temporary measure that has been enacted by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada to help international students during this COVID-19 situation. That being said, that temporary measure is currently in effect until the end of December 2020, so December 31st. After that, it is likely that you will need to travel to Canada to remain eligible for the postgrad work permit. I'm not going to jump in too much into the details of how long your program might be and when you need to travel to Canada, because it's a complicated topic, and we understand that you really need to weigh a lot of options to make an educated decision about what you want to do for the fall term. So we are putting all of this into writing for you, and we will send it out to you either tomorrow or early next week, so that you're able to go read through it calmly on your own time, and assess what your options are, and then feel free to reach out to us. If you have decided to defer, you can submit that on our website. If you have further questions, you can contact us on our Facebook page or by email at international@nbcc.ca. But we're hoping that that written scenario will help you make a decision and give you all of the information that you need from an immigration perspective. And then obviously you would consider your personal situation at home as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So Kathleen just thoroughly covered blended delivery, but essentially blended delivery is a combination of online theory and in person. So as Kathleen said, the overall academic year, so from September to June, might say blended, but for the fall, it might be an entirely online, or you might be in a program that has both components of online theory as well as in person, so a more of a hands-on component to it. And as she stated, it is essential for students to be present in Canada to participate, and we will be putting out that document for you within the next coming days. We also thoroughly covered online delivery, so students that are admitted to the program where it has been moved entirely online will be provided further guidance in that document as well. So self-isolation plan. Last week, everybody would have got an email from NBCC in regards to the self-isolation plan. It was a very lengthy email, so if you skimmed over it or you haven't read it yet, please do go back after our webinar today and do reread it, because it has a lot of important information in it. We are going to cover that information today, but it's very, very important that you do read over it and make sure that you're 100% understanding of everything that is in that document, because you're moving to a country in a pandemic, and we want to make sure that you understand everything that we put into play for you folks. So what is the self-isolation plan? So we have some very important protocols that the international students must follow to reduce the risk of infection and transmission of the virus. This also includes a mandatory 14-day quarantine upon arrival in Canada. In addition to quarantining, you also must provide the Canadian Border Service Agency with the quarantine plan. We've put it in the document for you. That was also included in the email. We're going to cover it again today. If you haven't looked at it, again, you're going to want to go and read over it. If you do not present this quarantine plan, you might be denied entry to the country. Do you have anything else to add on that, Kathleen, from an immigration perspective?
Yeah, so we have the pre-arrival webinar next week is about entry to Canada. So we'll really go into depth about what it will look like and answer any questions you have about that. But I would say regarding the quarantine plan, yes, you have to present one. It has to be comprehensive. You have to have your bookings confirmed. And if you don't have that, you could be denied entry. The other piece is you have to intend to follow that plan. So when you make it and you present it to the government, you're agreeing to the Canadian Quarantine Act, and you're saying, I've made these plans, I will follow all necessary requirements. If you don't, there are enormous fines, but there are also serious repercussions for your immigration status. It could affect your ability to re-enter Canada. You need to take it very seriously, and you have to understand that it is an agreement with the Canadian government for entering Canada. So you have to make sure that you have really thought it out, and we'll talk about what that entails today, and that you intend to follow it.
Perfect. So are you an international student currently located outside of Canada, or are you currently in Canada but are located outside of the Atlantic bubble? So that would be any of the Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, Yukon, Northwest Territories, or Nunavut provinces. If you said yes to being an international student out of Canada or in Canada but outside of the Atlantic bubble, you must visit our NBCC International Student Quarantine Plan and Consent page, and you must follow the instructions. So we're going to go and we're going to take a look here at the International Student Quarantine Plan page. Again, this information was included in the email that was sent it to you guys last week. So here on our website, you will find the quarantine plan and consent. So again, we're reiterating that there are important protocols that are in place for our international students that they must follow to reduce the risk of infection and transmission of the virus, including the 14-day quarantine plan. As part of the protocol, we are asking all returning and incoming international students to comply and review the NBCC student self-isolation plan. We have asked that you complete and submit the quarantine plan by July 31st, which is tomorrow. But as Kathleen mentioned, there are going to be some new information passed on to us tomorrow from the IRCC in regards to some study permits, maybe some new information. So if you don't hand it in by tomorrow because you don't really know what's going on with your application, that's okay. The earlier that we can know if you're coming or not, or what your plan is and whether you've given your consent to follow, the better we are able to help prepare. But if you don't know for sure if you are going to be able to make it or if you're going to be able to comply with the policy that we put in play for you, hold off until you know better. And also within that policy, we do have a couple deadlines that we'll go over as well. So down here, as you scroll through, you'll see instructions. So number one, you want to download and print the NBCC International Student Quarantine Plan form and the NBCC International Student Quarantine Consent form. You're going to fill in all the forms and sign them. You're going to scan the signed forms as PDF files and submit them back through the webpage on this form. And you're going to keep a copy of the signed forms for you when you travel to Canada, as you may need to present them at the port of entry. So as you scroll down here, you'll see the three documents that we talked about. So there's the NBCC Student Self-Isolation Plan, the Quarantine Consent Form, and the Quarantine Plan Form. Once you have printed off, signed, and acknowledged these forms, you will submit them here. So here you're going to type in your NBCC student ID, you're going to put in your first name, your last name, your email address, and you're going to upload your documents here. Once you've uploaded your documents that have been signed and saved as a PDF, you're going to hit submit and it gets added to your file. So let's go take a look at these documents. So the first one here is the NBCC Student Self-Isolation Plan. It's just loading on my end. Sorry, folks. Maybe we're not going to take a look at it. Can you still hear me, Kathleen?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Got a slow loading document there.
We do. My computer is thinking very hard right now. All right, let's try this again. Well then.
Do you want me to try to open it on my computer here?
Sure, that'd be fantastic.
Let's see. Yep, I've got it.
Perfect.
So
I'm gonna let you share yours there.
Okay.
Perfect.
Show my screen. Can you see that?
I can, yes, thank you.
Okay. Can you see all the tabs I have open on my internet browser?
A lot. It's what my brain probably feels like right now. All these little tabs open.
I know. I'm the worst for that, so I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sure it's driving some of you nuts. Brittany, do you want to go ahead and read it? Do you need me to zoom in a little bit?
I will put my eyes to the test, but yes, I might need you to zoom in at some point.
How's that?
So thank you. So this is a 12-page document. So within here, we've highlighted everything important that you need to know about your travel to Canada. So within that, we've talked about your travel to Canada, your restrictions and your self-isolation requirements. we've put into play that the information is considered true and accurate as of July 22nd. So at the time of reading this, as far as I know, there haven't been any major changes to the information that we have provided you. But again, information does change. So it's very important that you do your due diligence as an incoming international student, that you pay close attention to the rules and regulations as set out by the IRCC and the Government of Canada when it comes time to travel. So before you leave, a couple days before you depart your home country, I would definitely say to check the Canadian government website in regards to any travel restrictions or any new information that they have about the airport that you're flying into or about the area that you're going to be coming into, because there might be some information there for you. If you wouldn't mind scrolling down, Kathleen, that'd be great.
Sure.
Perfect. So down here, as Kathleen mentioned, we do have information for you from the Government of Canada in regards to the laws and regulations. So before you travel, it's extremely important that you make sure that you're actually permitted into Canada. So as international students, there are restrictions in regards to your study permit and visas. So again, you need to be mindful of those dates, but we have put links in there as well from the Government of Canada in regards to the Coronavirus Visitors for Workers and Students Act. You can find that information there. You can also find information on travel restrictions, exemptions, and advice from our Quarantine Act for the Government of Canada. And the Government of Canada has also restrictions on optional and discretionary travel for internationals. So you can find that link there as well. The Government of Canada has those laws and regulations in place, but so does our province. So we put information there as well for our province of New Brunswick. Anyone granted entry into Canada is permitted to enter New Brunswick. However, you do have to follow our 14-day self-isolation plan. And so each adult over 18 years of age and older entering the province needs to complete a self-registration. If you're traveling with your family and you have minors, so under the age of 18, you can list your children on your registration as well. But if you and your partner, husband, wife, whoever you're traveling with is over the age of 18 years or older, you need to fill out your own registration form per person. We have put it in here that you want to pre-register online. However, one of our students graciously brought this to our attention that when you do go in to do your pre-registration, if you mark down that you are out of is it province or out of the country?
If you have traveled outside Canada in the last 14 days.
So if you acknowledge, and we want everybody to do this if it's true, if you have been out of Canada within the last 14 days of the date that you're planning on entering, it will not allow you to proceed with your registration. So although, unfortunately, we wish that we would have known that in advance, it won't let you pre-register that way. So when you do get into your port, either through BC, Toronto, Montreal, wherever you're flying into, they'll be able to better advise you on how you're going to register. And then when you get into the province of New Brunswick, you're also going to have to complete a registration for the province as well. So although we've listed, there are some pros and cons to, pre-registering, limiting any delays for your travel, making sure that you have all the necessary documents. Unfortunately, because it won't let you pre-register if you've been out of the country for 14 days, you're going to have to register once you get into Canada. So just expect delays and make sure that you have all the documents there that you need. Where it says pre-register online, if you were to click on online, it will also give you a list of all the necessary documents that you need. Enrollment letter, you're going to need your passport, obviously your study permit, your visa, those types of things. You're going to need to have those on hand, and those can be used for doing your registration once you arrive in New Brunswick as well. Anything else that you want to add, or are you going to cover some of that next week?
I'll cover a lot of that in depth next week as well. So just make sure that you tune in next week or watch the recording once it's available.
Perfect. So when you travel into Canada, we are suggesting that students should arrive no later than August 18th. This is only a suggestion. We are very understanding that, flights might be hard to find out of your country or in and around those dates. The cost of the tickets might be inflated because of the pandemic. So, you're going to have to play around with, flights and scheduling and such. So we are understanding that you might not be able to be here for August 18th, but we're making it as a suggestion. And the reason for that is we want to allow enough time for you to do your 14-day self-isolation. But then once your isolation is done, you're going to need time to get situated before classes start on September 8th. So even if your classes are online entirely for the fall term, you're still going to need to find somewhere to live. You're going to want to open up your bank account. You're going to want to find grocery stores. If you're taking public transit, you're going to want to navigate transit so that you can make sure that you know how to get around your city. So there are things that you want to take into consideration. So again, it's not a you need to be here, and if you're not here, too bad. We're making a suggestion to make your transition easier, if that makes sense. And when you're booking your flights to Canada, if you haven't already done so already, you want to fly in to the airport that is closest to your campus. So for example, myself and Kathleen are located out in St. Andrews. Closest airport for us is St. John. We're not going to fly into Moncton. We're going to pick the airport that is closest to the area that we're going to. So we have given you the directory of what airport would be closest based off the campus that you're going to be going to. And then also based off that city would be where you would be doing your 14-day quarantine period. So if you are flying into Fredericton, you will be staying in Fredericton for your 14 days to do your quarantine. If you are going to the Woodstock campus, the Fredericton airport is the closest for you, and that's also where you'd be doing your 14-day quarantine period. St. Andrews would be flying into St. John, Miramichi would be flying into Moncton. So again, please make sure that you refer to this if you haven't already booked your ticket, because it will make your life so much easier. All right, upon arrival in Canada. So again, you're gonna go through all of this next week with Kathleen, so I'm not gonna bore you to death with it, but I do want to stress that you need to read this document. Whether Kathleen and I talk about it today or not, it's very important that you know exactly what it is that's expected of you, because when you go through the border, sometimes you get stressed. It's a very nerve-wracking experience. You're tired, you're hot, you maybe haven't slept well. It's very important that you understand everything that's being asked of you, and the only way that you can do that is by you doing the research. So transportation from the airport to the quarantine location. So as I mentioned, you will be flying into one of 3 airports. You'll be flying into either Fredericton, Moncton, or St. John. We have contacted all the airports, and they have specific contracts set up with certain taxi services in the area. Once you arrive at the airport, you will have to do your registration. This can take some time, depending on how big your flight is, how many other people need to register, and it does take a little bit of time to process your registration. So once your registration is done, you've gone through all the checkpoints, you're able to collect your luggage, you will then be able to make a call from the airport lobby to the taxi service. You can call them once you're ready. They'll have somebody come pick you up outside, and they'll take you right to your airport, or sorry, right from the airport to your hotel. All the taxi services have certain protocols in play to make sure that not only you stay safe, but so that their drivers stay safe. So there will be maximums of how many people are allowed in the vehicle. So if you're traveling with a family, say there's 2 or 3 of you, or maybe 4 of you, you want to ask for a van. You want to tell them why. It's because there's 4 of you traveling. You'll need to sit in the very back of the vehicle. Nobody will be allowed to sit up front. And if you have a mask, I suggest you wear your mask in there. Even loading your own luggage. Some of the taxi services won't touch your luggage. Some of them will if you ask them to. But just to reduce the amount of handling that's happening there, if you're able-bodied to lift your own luggage into the vehicle, probably recommended to do so. So again, when you call to book your taxi, you want to ask them if there's anything that you need to be mindful of when the taxi driver arrives there, because you want to keep yourself safe and you want to keep the taxi driver safe. So you don't need to know all those airport numbers that are there for the taxi services, because they'll be posted in the lobby. Like I said, they'll have a little white phone that you can go over, pick up the handle, and it will automatically dial to the taxi. But if you want to keep those on hand, that's also helpful too, because they might ask you that at the border. How are you getting to your airport, or from the airport to the hotel? You'll need to know that. So once you get to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Jump in, Brittany, sorry. Just this piece I think is really important too. I know some of you might have family or friends that you're excited to see that live here. Them picking you up at the airport is not an option. You need to make sure that you're taking a taxi and then isolating for 14 days. Because you'll have been traveling through several airports, the risk of transmitting to someone who's already in New Brunswick is higher than a normal situation, and you just want to make sure that you're not taking any undue risks.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. And we do sympathize. We understand that that might be very hard. But really, in the grand scheme of it, it's 14 days. And I'm sure they would like to see you after the 14 days when, you've gone through your recovery and everybody's all safe and clear. So once you do successfully make it to the place where you are doing your 14-day quarantine, which would likely be a hotel, we have put out information there for you of acquiring food. So depending on the hotel that you're staying at, and we do have a list, we'll go through that very, very briefly in a couple minutes, but based off the hotel that you're staying at, they might have food service available, they might not, but you might want to get your own groceries. If your place has like a little kitchenette or a mini fridge, you might want to get some yogurt, some bananas, some breads, snacks, different things like that. So there are different grocery services available. You can order them online. Typically, you have to use a credit card. So as mentioned in our webinar last week about money, tech, and talk, you do want to make sure that you do have some cash on hand, either Canadian or US dollars, but for the purpose of your travel, because you are going to have to do a 14-day quarantine, most people aren't going to want to handle money. So if you're doing food takeout services, you're doing a grocery pickup or delivery, you're going to want to have access to funds on a credit card. So please make sure that you are set up to use your credit card, not only in Canada, but while traveling. So either you need to let your credit card provider know that you're traveling to Canada so that they don't flag your account and lock it because they think that somebody maybe stole your card. But you also want to make sure that you have access to those funds as well, because you'll have to purchase groceries on it if that's the route that you decide to go, paying for your hotel, etc. If you order your groceries through grocery services, either through the Atlantic Superstore, which is a chain of grocery stores that we have here out in the Atlantic coast, or Walmart, for example, you can order your groceries online. Depending on the volume, they'll have a same-day pickup. Some hotels will go and pick up the groceries for you at a surcharge. If the hotel isn't equipped to go and pick up the groceries for you, there are also options as well. One's called Instacart. So you can actually shop through their website instead of going on to the Atlantic Superstore or Walmart. You go into Instacart, create an account, shop at the stores that are local in your area, and they will deliver it to you, hopefully in the same day. There's also takeout options. As I mentioned last week, there is no Uber here, which also means that there's no Uber Eats, but we do have a service called Skip the Dishes. And so it is quite similar. So local restaurants will put their menus out there on the app for you to look at. You can order your food through the app and they will deliver it to you. Again, they're going to do a knock and drop. They're going to come to your door. They're going to knock on the outside of the door. They're going to drop your food and they're going to leave. So you're going to be in your room. So it's not like you're going to miss it, but you do need to pay for it on a credit card. So again, you just want to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row when it comes to your finances and your ability to pay for food once you are in your 14-day quarantine, because you can't go to a bank to fix it if you don't have the funds available to you. All right. Quarantine day information. So as per the Canadian government's Quarantine Act, so we talked about this, we've also put the hyperlink in there if you're not exactly sure what the Quarantine Act is, because it's still very new and you want to know a little bit more about it, you can just click on the hyperlink there and it will tell you more about it. Under the Quarantine Act, you are required to quarantine for 14 days immediately upon your arrival into Canada. This means that you must stay in your room for 14 days with no contact to others. So when you go in, you check into the hotel, they have their own policies and procedures in place. They'll have probably a plexiglass around between you and the reception. They're going to have everything wiped down and sanitized. Again, as mentioned in the taxis, you're going to want to have masks. You're going to want to have hand sanitizers. It's important that you carry those healthy habits through your entire travel. So whether you're in airports, bathrooms, taxis, hotels, you want to make sure that you're wearing your mask, that you have access to hand sanitizer. In the Quarantine Act, you are not allowed to leave your quarantine room unless there is a medical emergency. NBCC student peer counselors will be contacting you daily for check-ins to see how you are doing. We will contact you, or they will contact you to appropriate campus or community resources if needed. I think 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think you guys had Megan on from GuardMe, which is the insurance that you have as international students. She probably also talked about an app that's called Keep Me Safe, which is a mental and health resource available to you as international students, where you can talk to somebody in your own language. If you're, dealing with any mental frustrations or you're not feeling quite yourself, it's hard to go through a 14-day quarantine period. I've had to do it when I re-entered Canada from a business trip. It's very hard, let alone being in a country where you don't know anybody. So there are those resources available to you. So you can reach out to NBCC support staff. You can reach it through the app. So please make sure that you do that. But again, you can't leave your room to do that. So you want to make sure that you understand who the resources are before you leave your country. You want to keep your room well ventilated and clean. So the hotels will not be offering daily housekeeping services because they want to keep their cleaning staff safe, but they will provide you the resources that you need to clean your room. So if you need to clean your bathroom, you want to clean a counter, you want to change your sheets, they'll drop all that off to you, but it's your responsibility to keep it clean, and you want to make sure that you keep your room well ventilated. Good hygiene practices. So you're going to wash your hands frequently with plain soap and water for at least 20 seconds. I grew up singing the happy birthday song. I don't know. Sing a song, count to 20, whatever you guys want to do. Just make sure that your hands are washed. You want to cover your mouth and your nose in your elbow when you sneeze. So we call it the vampire cough. So you kind of put your face cover like that, just to make sure that you're not sneezing or coughing out into the open area where somebody could pick up any particles. You want to avoid coughing into your hands, then you touch things, or out into the air. Like I said, that's how the disease spreads. Dispose the tissues right away. Don't leave them on a surface or anything like that. Flush the toilet with the lid down. Package up your garbage, any empty garbage, frequently, and wash your hands immediately. Again, you want to refer to the COVID policy for your hotel regarding laundry. Some of them have it, some of them don't. So just make sure that you also read that as well. Stay connected to friends and family via text, email, FaceTime, etc. So when we created the hotel list, I think every single one offered complimentary Wi-Fi. So typically when international students come into Canada and New Brunswick, the first thing that they want to do is get a SIM card, because they want to be able to text and talk to their friends and let them know that they got here safe. Because you are not able to do that, having the free Wi-Fi at the hotels is going to be a great resource for you, because you're going to then be able to connect to the Wi-Fi, let your family know that you're safe, talk to your friends, but also reach out to NBCC via email if you need us. So make sure that you understand exactly what it is that your hotel offers and what your service provider allows you to do outside the country. Monitor your physical and well-being. If you are not feeling well, use the Government of Canada's COVID-19 self-assessment tool to help you determine if you need further assessment for testing. We've also put the testing link in there as well. If you cannot use the tool, you can dial 811. So 811 is a provincial service that we have. It's called telehealth. It will allow you to connect with a nurse who can do your assessment over the phone. If they determine that you need further assessment, either by a doctor or at a hospital from a medical professional, they will further guide you, but you do not leave your hotel unless somebody tells you you need to go to the hospital. Please remember that the quarantine is a mandatory requirement of the Quarantine Act, and it is not optional. So after your quarantine, you're done your 14 days. If you are not present of any COVID-19 symptoms, you are able to leave your hotel to explore the city and look for long-term housing. You can transfer to your campus via maritime bus or taxi. So again, depending on if you're in St. John and you're coming to St. Andrews, you're going to need to arrange for taxi services to get you from city to city. If you're staying in St. John or you're in Moncton and that's where your campus is as well, once you're done your quarantine, you can then go out and physically see rental options that are available for you. For the duration of your stay in Canada, please be mindful and respect public health directives. So continue to use proper hygiene, including hand washing, use of hand sanitizer, coughing and sneezing etiquette. Like I said, you want to kind of cover your face or pull your mask up if you're wearing a mask out in public, and practice physical distancing, so 6 feet apart. Hotels. So I'm not going to go through this whole list, but again, you do want to check it out based off of the area that you're staying in. We've provided you multiple hotels in each city. We've included the rates, the address, what the rate includes. So, free Wi-Fi, is there a mini fridge, what happens to your meals, is there a meal plan available, and booking information. You will need to have all this information readily available when you enter Canada. So you need to know the address, you need to know where you're staying, you need to have all this information. So this is why we provide it to you and why we're suggesting that you print it off or bring it with you when you enter Canada. So we have it listed here for St. John, we have it listed for Moncton, and we have it listed for Fredericton. Perfect. Checklists. Everybody loves checklists. So this is a great way for you to ensure that you have everything that you need pre-departure, through your travels, once you enter Canada, what you need for PPE, so what we call, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank, protective equipment. So personal protective equipment of what you need. So that's considered like a mask, gloves, different things that you need like that is what we call PPE. There's documents there, what we consider packing needs. So we're suggesting, at least 2 masks, some gloves, disinfectant, wipes, etc. When I was traveling when the pandemic first hit North America. Nobody knew what was happening, so we didn't quite understand what was needed. But one of the suggestions that I had from a family member, and it was a great suggestion, I'm very thankful for it. I was able to wipe down my seat of the plane that I was sitting in, wipe down the armrest, wipe down the tables. They're all doing that. But you never know if somebody's walking past and they're in the window seat and you're on the outside, if they've touched your seat on the way through. So you always want to just be mindful. There's no harm in, wiping things down. Nobody's going to be offended. We're all just trying to stay safe. Additional face masks if you need them, hand sanitizer, more gloves, a thermometer. So when you're doing your self-assessment, sometimes people have a really hard time of telling if they personally have a fever or a temperature. So if you bring a thermometer to do your self-assessment, not a bad idea. Again, these are only suggestions. Based off the country that you're coming in, you might not be able to acquire buckets of hand sanitizer. You might not be able to go and get a thermometer right now. So these are just suggestions that we're making. Perfect. So these last 2 pages here are the other documents that we talked about on the quarantine page. So you have your quarantine plan. So Kathleen, I'm going to get you to talk about this one if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course, give you a little break.
Thank you.
So the quarantine plan is both for you to organize your thoughts and your plans for your 14-day quarantine when you arrive in Canada, and also for you to be able to show a very clear, succinct plan to anyone who asks to see it in your travels. So a border services officer, anything like that. So fairly self-explanatory, your personal information. You want that to match your passport information as well. Your home address, that's in your country. Your arrival information, so the date you're arriving, where you are coming from, so where you actually left from, not your most recent flight, your port of entry into Canada, and that's the first time that you will enter Canada. So a lot of you might be transiting through Toronto or Montreal or something like that. That's the port of entry that you want to put there, even if your final destination is Fredericton, because that's actually where you will go through customs, is the first time you enter the country. And then arrival by the airline that you're flying with and the flight number that you came in on. For your quarantine plan, again, that's everything that Brittany was just talking about. So where you're staying, the confirmation number for your booking, and you could even print off your booking confirmation and include it with this quarantine plan, especially if it outlines those like that it offers a meal plan or that they'll have groceries delivered, because that shows that you've crossed off everything that you need to do to meet the quarantine plan. And then also a phone number for the hotel, so a contact number. And you're confirming that you have access to all your needed toiletries, linens, cleaning supplies, and that you will be able to eat either by pre-prepared meals that will be delivered to you or groceries that will be delivered to your hotel. This show, again, has all of those phone numbers for taxis to leave the airport, so you'll have them right at your hand. You don't necessarily have to look for them when you get to the airport, and you'd be able to show an agent when you are coming in that you're prepared in that sense. You're acknowledging that you do have GuardMe health insurance starting on August 16th. That's arranged through NBCC. If you'll be arriving before August 16th, you should purchase early arrival insurance. And you can do that through GuardMe or through another organization if you'd like, but because you'll be registered in GuardMe anyway, we would recommend this. We also have quite an inexpensive rate arranged for you. We did notice that if you click on this link, it's going to give you an error message that looks like this. If you go up to the URL and just take away everything after NBCC and press that, it will bring you to the GuardMe NBCC page. You're an inbound student because you're coming to Canada, and early arrivals. And then you can apply for insurance if you're arriving August 10th or anytime before August 16th. Now let me jump back to this document here. Will it let me? Here, I'll go through this. And then the last piece on that quarantine plan is, again, your commitment to the plan. So saying, I have made the plan and I will abide by the regulations in the Quarantine Act. And you will self-isolate for 14 days, and then you're able to leave your hotel room or your arrangements. So once you've signed that and dated it, that's a nice, succinct one-page document that you'll be able to refer to at the airport. As Brittany mentioned, no matter where you're going or however friendly people might be when you're going through customs, it can still be a stressful situation. So when you have it all written down right in front of you, it's very clear for the person you're trying to explain it for, and it's a nice reference for you as well, to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident talking about your quarantine plan. So this second sheet that you also need to fill out at the bottom with your name, your student ID number, your signature, and the date is your consent form. So again, that's saying that you understand the regulations around Canada's Quarantine Act, that you filled out and that you will print and have with you a copy of the quarantine plan, that you'll register with the Arrive Can app if you're arriving from outside of Canada, and we'll talk more about that app next week as well, that you've arranged health insurance, that you understand that any reservations or agreements that you make with local hotels is between you and the hotel. NBCC isn't involved in that and isn't responsible for any charges related to self-isolation accommodation. So you are responsible for all finances associated with self-isolation. And finally, very important, you understand that failure to comply with these requirements may compromise your ability to attend and participate in NBCC programs and activities and could affect the ability to stay and study in Canada. So understanding that this is a serious undertaking and you have to abide by the quarantine regulations.
Perfect. So those are the documents that you need to know about. So again, there are 3 documents that are listed on our, I'm just gonna actually,
yeah, do you want me to
share? I'll share my screen. Perfect. Perfect. Is everybody able to see my screen again? Kathleen, can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. So as mentioned, there are 3 documents that are here. In that 12-page document, it actually encompasses all of these, but we do want to encourage you to make sure that you read them, you print them out, and you do submit exactly what it is that you need to submit. We can't stress that enough. So moving on to housing resources, I know we're getting a little close to time, but this also is another important one as well. So once you're done your 14-day quarantine self-isolation, you're going to want to start looking for housing resources. You definitely can start doing some research online in advance. So we do have a website through NBCC available. So nbcc.ca/student services/housing. Based off the city that you're going to, we do have a list of resources available to you. You can start to do some shopping online. However, If you're able to, and the landlord is willing to wait until you're done your 14-day quarantine, we do recommend that you do wait to actually go see the apartment or the rental in person. We have had situations where, you know, pictures don't always do justice, or maybe students thought that they were getting one thing when they were actually getting something else. So you always want to make sure that you're exactly clear on what it is that you're looking for, what you need as a student, and what's available to you at your place of rental. So originally this was supposed to be a webinar solely on housing, but because of the Quarantine Act, we felt it was very, very important for us to talk to you more in depth about the self-isolation plan than it was about housing resources. But we do have the webinar link from our last year's presentation regarding housing. It is an hour long. It's incredibly informational. So if you do have the time, I've put the hyperlink in there for our YouTube channel. I highly recommend that you go in and watch it, even if you can't watch the whole thing. But we do talk about very important things such as, you know, renter's insurance, things that you want to be cautious of when signing up for a rental. You want to make sure that certain things are included, you know, your utilities, what's included, is internet included, what your rights are as a tenant. So there are very, very important things that we want to make sure that you are aware of. So please, if you can, go check that out. That takes us to the end of our presentation for right now. So what I'm going to do is let's open it up. I know you have all been very patient. I see all your questions coming in. I really, really do. So let's get started on some of your questions here. We'll answer as many as we can, and we'll go.
And what we'll do also is any question that's more about the process of traveling to Canada and entering Canada, we'll make note of them. We might not answer them today, but I'll take note of them and I'll make sure that I integrate the answers into our presentation next week. So we will discuss them.
Perfect, thank you for that. Okay, so if my diploma starts online, may I arrive on September 1st week? So again, as we mentioned, you definitely can arrive. We are making the recommendation that you arrive on August 18th. It's only a recommendation. So again, if your travel restrictions don't allow you to leave, or you know you'd rather come a little later, that's okay too. But keep in mind that you still do want enough time to get prepared and feel ready for when you start your program. You don't want to be scattered looking for a place or a rental or trying to navigate the city of when you get here. So even if your program is online, if classes start on the 8th and you arrive on the 1st, you will have only been in Canada for 7 days. That's only half of your quarantine. You haven't opened up a bank account yet. So within, you know, that week's time, if you haven't paid your tuition yet, you're still going to have to pay your tuition. You're going to want groceries. You might need, you know, to figure out how you have to get your books. So there's different things that you want to make sure that you are prepared to do. So if you are confident in that and you're like, yeah, I can totally handle that from my hotel room, power to you. That is fantastic. But just make sure that you have a plan and you understand everything that might be required of you as a student within your first couple weeks of getting here. It is stressful. I've never had to move to another country. I've never moved to a different country. I've moved provinces, and that was stressful enough. And I spoke the language, and I could kind of navigate the street signs and everything like that. So, I mean, once you get here, you're going to have a better idea of what you're comfortable with once you're done your 14-day quarantine. But I just wouldn't want anybody to put themselves in a position where they say, no, it's okay, I'll figure it out when I get there. Because you can't. You really do need to have a plan when you get here. Yeah. Anything else that you want to elaborate on that? I see you going like this. You're like, yeah, you need a plan.
I have moved to another country, and I can say that when you're making arrangements and things like that, it's much easier and nicer to do those things in person than over the phone, especially if it's in a language that you're not used to using as much. So yeah, like Brittany said, if you think you're okay and you can handle it, that's great. But if it were me, I would give myself a little bit of extra time if I was able. And I will just make a note, if your studies are online, you just have to make sure that you're meeting both of those requirements, that your study permit was issued before March 18th, and that you have a good solid reason for why it's absolutely non-discretionary that you travel to Canada. So if you can't access those online courses at home, that would be a compelling reason.
So the next question is, I have already paid for my quarantine place before I received your email regarding isolation options. So So my question is, can I still use it for us? It's like using a hotel near St. John to place as a house. So Kathleen actually had a very good point about this, because we were chatting about it a little earlier today. Because we were talking about, you know, if they stay at an Airbnb or they've rented a place, like what are the pros and cons to having a hotel versus, you know, renting an Airbnb or staying at a bed and breakfast? And Kathleen had some really good points. So Kathleen, I'm going to pass this one over to you.
Sure. So ultimately, it is your decision as long as you're meeting those base requirements from the Quarantine Act. So make sure that you're familiar with them if you aren't going through a hotel. But I do know I had some friends move to New Brunswick recently from Ontario, so they had to quarantine, and they had issues in their Airbnb with Wi-Fi. And because they were quarantining, they weren't able to have anyone in to fix the internet issues. So they went their last week without any internet. So there are things like that that hopefully won't happen in Airbnbs or in an apartment that you've rented, but could. So you have to be ready for that sort of situation. Whereas in hotels, it's really nice and easy, and we can feel confident recommending those to students because they've been dealing with this Quarantine Act since March. So they're familiar with what needs to happen, how to make it work for both them as a business and also for you as a guest. So they've kind of figured all of that out and worked out some of the issues that you might experience in an Airbnb or something like that. But ultimately, it's your decision as long as you're meeting those base requirements of the Quarantine Act and you have a way to get food and to get everything you need. You know best for your situation.
Absolutely. So the next question is, do I need early insurance if I'm arriving the week of September 1st? So your student insurance kicks in on August 18th. So if you arrive prior to August 18th, you will need pre-arrival insurance. If you arrive after August 18th, you already have your insurance. You do not need to purchase pre-arrival insurance.
Brittany, it did say in the isolation plan August 16th.
What did I say?
August 18th, which is the date we're telling people to arrive. So
yes. Yeah. Okay. So just want to clear it. Your insurance starts August 16th. Mandatory registration for NBCC students is August 17th. The date that we are recommending as the latest arrival for international students to come into the province of New Brunswick is August 18th. 16, 17, 18. It's a jam-packed 3 days, very busy. So, and if I can't even keep it straight working for NBCC, you really want to read your documents.
Yeah.
Really want to read your documents. So yes, insurance starts coverage as of the 16th. Your registration is the 17th, and we're recommending that you be in country by the 18th. When you arrive at the Toronto airport, for example, does my quarantine start there or when I arrive in Fredericton? Your quarantine starts once you arrive in Fredericton.
As long as your flight is connecting through to Fredericton.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I don't know if this is actually about the self-isolation, but I'm going to read it out anyways because I think it has some good information in it. So it says about the upcoming registration, my visa application was approved before March 18th, but my passport has yet to be stamped due to the lockdown, as now our visa application center is still closed. My plan is to attend the fall online and will fly to Canada by December 2020 as soon as I get my passport stamped. Is it advisable to push through with the registration or just defer?
That's a really good question. If you have that letter that says that your study permit application was approved, that's all you need to say that it's been approved, and you could start your studies online. And once visa offices reopen and you're able to mail your passport and get that visa to enter Canada, you'd be able to enter once they reopen and you get that. So hopefully by December.
Thank you. Are you allowing students to start studying online after approval in principle?
Very good question, and you're clearly following the IRCC updates, which is great and which is really important. A decision is being made today about that. It really changes some things for NBCC, so we have to weigh all of the pros and cons of the situation. So we're reviewing it today and making a formal decision. So you should hear from us either tomorrow or early next week about that decision specifically. But that would, if it is approved, that would only apply to online courses. If your program is blended, again, you would have to be physically in Canada and have that final study permit approval.
So this piggybacks off that. So when are we going to receive the support letter from NBCC in which it is essential to travel?
Next week.
Short and sweet, next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a big week.
Very busy week. I'll be traveling from the province of Ontario, and I've booked an accommodation for myself for long-term student housing. Is it fine to stay in my accommodation to self-isolate myself? And may I know the instructions for domestic travel? Thanks. So again, if you are coming from a province outside of the Atlantic bubble, so the Atlantic bubble is New Brunswick, Newfoundland, PEI, Nova Scotia. So those 4 provinces are the Atlantic bubble. We are allowed to travel within those 4 provinces without doing a quarantine, a 14-day self-isolation. If you are coming from any of the other provinces in Canada, when you enter New Brunswick, you are required to do a 14-day self-isolation. So if you're coming from out of Canada or from any of the provinces that aren't in the Atlantic province bubble, you have to do a 14-day self-isolation.
And you'd be adhering to New Brunswick's isolation requirements, so that registering before you arrive in New Brunswick link, that would apply to you, and you can pre-register there. And I would just recommend reading through the Government of New Brunswick webpage on entering the province.
Perfect. I know, how's your schedule looking? Are you still okay on time, Kathleen? I know we're a little bit over 11 o'clock right now.
I've got a few more minutes for sure.
Perfect. So we just have a couple more here. So it's in the program is blended. I need a travel support letter. I think we already covered this. My flight is booked for the 3rd of August. Ooh, that's soon. And I didn't know until now that I wanted and needed that to show that letter. What can I do? So the 3rd of August is Monday. So in that instance, Kathleen,
email immigration visa help at nbcc.ca today. Let me know that you were the individual in the webinar, and we'll work to get you that letter prior to your travels on Monday.
So for the individual that just asked that, if you didn't quite catch the email address that Kathleen just gave you, I'm going to privately message it to you right now while we move on to another question. So just bear with me and I will send that off to you right now. Is it mandatory to self-isolate in a hotel or an apartment? Again, I think we covered this. It really is based off of your opinion or what you feel is best. If in this apartment, you shouldn't be with, friends or family, you really should be on your own. And then you do want to make sure that, you have access to and from that apartment to keep not only yourself safe, but other people safe. So, is it a shared stairwell? Is it an elevator? Is it a private entrance? Like, these are things that you want to take into consideration. Is it possible to do the 14-day quarantine outside of New Brunswick and then move there after? Well, if you were to do that, you would still have to do a 14-day quarantine, but in one of the other Atlantic provinces, so either PEI, Nova Scotia, or Newfoundland. So it might be easier for you to just do it here.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you're thinking like stay in Ontario and do a 14-day quarantine upon arrival in Canada, once you came to New Brunswick, you would then have to do another 14-day quarantine.
Perfect. Submit the self-isolation plan after July 31st. Yes. So as we mentioned, Kathleen had said that there are going to be some new announcements tomorrow from the IRCC, which may impact your ability to travel and or attend NBCC in the fall. So if you haven't submitted your plan already yet, that's okay. If you haven't decided if you are going to defer because you're waiting on these new announcements, that's okay too. We will still accept your documents and your deferral request once you've made up that decision. The best way that I can say it is that although we've put those deadlines in place, it's more so just because if you know what you're doing, we want to know as soon as possible. If you don't know what you're doing, we don't want you to make a decision if you're not 100% informed. And in order to do that, you need all the information. So, waiting for these updates and making an informed decision that's the best thing that you can do. If it takes you a couple extra days beyond the deadline to do so, 100% okay. 100% okay. So many questions coming in. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have time for a couple more questions. I'm really sorry here, guys. Some of these are the exact same. When did you say that we will receive the email to register? So registration for NBCC starts on August 17th. So likely the week before that, you will start to receive emails like letting you know that it's upcoming, and you might even receive a reminder one in between that to let you know, registration is coming up in a couple days. Is your IT student self-service account activated? Can you access it? You want to go in and check, make sure that your password's working, everything like that. This is a really good one. If my flight arrives close to midnight, will I be able to call a taxi? Yes. Yes, we will. Especially ones that are coming into the airports. There's taxi services 24/7. It's very rare that you wouldn't be able to get some sort of taxi service available to you. If in the instance you couldn't get a taxi service for whatever reason at all, not that I see that happening at the Moncton, St. John, or Fredericton Airport, but you could contact or get one of the hotels or one of the airport staff to contact the hotel that you're at, and the hotel might even be able to offer you a shuttle. Sometimes they do that. With the way that the quarantine policies and procedures has been right now, they haven't been offering it. But if there was ever an instance where you physically couldn't get from the airport to a safe location, which would be considered your hotel, which is your place of quarantine, they might be able to arrange something for you. I'm not saying it could happen, but if you were ever in a situation where you couldn't, for whatever reason, get a taxi, you could always contact the hotel. So a lot of these have to do with immigration. So I'm going to leave those for next week. But like Kathleen said, we're going to save them so that we can review them next week. Hi there, I'll be spending my quarantine at the in-law suite of my brother. Would you suggest that we still take a cab going to their place? Yes. Yeah. So as Kathleen stressed, it's very important that you do not have any physical contact with any friends or family in that time frame. They'll be very excited to see you and might not be as strict with the restrictions in place once you get into their vehicle. So it is very important that you do take the taxi and only a taxi. You're not taking public transit. You're not carpooling with somebody that you met from the flight from Montreal and you guys are going to share a taxi. You are solely taking a taxi to your destination and your destination only. You're not stopping to get groceries. You're not stopping to get a coffee or a toothbrush because you forgot to get a toothbrush. You are going straight from the airport right to your hotel. All right. So that one is for you for next week, Kathleen.
Brittany, are you able to take a screenshot or something of all of these questions and send it to me?
I will. We will. Be great. We'll be able to access those.
And what we'll be able to do is take some of these questions and we'll talk about them at our Tuesday webinar as well. So you don't necessarily have to wait until next Thursday to get the answers to your questions. On Tuesday, we'll go through these and see what was the most frequently asked questions and put together some answers for that. And if there's one question that's been asked a ton, we'll put together some resources for you as well so that we can send those out or post them on our Facebook page and you'll be able to read through links and online resources, those sorts of things.
Awesome.
I know these are really uncertain times right now, and we really appreciate your patience and your eagerness to come study with us at NBCC. We are really excited to have you in whatever capacity that is this fall, if it's online or seeing you in a hall every once in a while. But it'll be great to have you here, or if you're considering deferring, it'll be great to have you next year. These are really uncertain times, and we just want to make sure that you're getting the information you need from us and that you you're making the decisions that are the best for you in your personal circumstances.
Absolutely. So one of these ones here, it's probably going to be the last one that I touch on. It's actually not directly related to housing resources, but it says, can you please provide advice on how to enroll my kids in school? So in that housing link that I provided on the second last slide, so the one before it said thank you, I had a list of our housing resources from our NBCC website as well as the YouTube link there. When you go on to the NBCC/student services/housing, we have a resource guide per city that you're moving to. And so within that, we'll give you the information to contact the local school boards, and then you can reach out to them and figure out what documentation it is that you need there. So that's where you'd be able to find that information. So just echoing what Kathleen said, I really do appreciate you all tuning in today. I know we went a little over time. You had some really, really great questions, and I really hope that you were able to get some information that will be helpful to you in your travels and as well as quarantining. It's hard, not only moving to a different country, but now you're having to deal with this pandemic and everything. So I really do understand if you're feeling stressed, and if there's anything that we can do to help, please do email us at international@nbcc.ca. Be sure to check out the GuardMe website and understand fully what you're entitled to and what your resources are once your coverage starts on August 16th. Because there is an app, like I said, it's called Keep Me Safe. You will need to download it, and once you get sent your student information for your package, you will have access to use that. It's a great resource. Like I said, you can talk to mental and well-being counselors. You can talk to our NBCC staff as well, based off of the campus that you're going to be out of. So you're not alone in any of this. We do understand, we do sympathize that it is incredibly stressful, but that's why we've put the quarantine plan in place for you. So that 12-page document, it's long, it's a lot of information, but really the reason why we put it together is to help you. So if you do have any questions, refer there first, and then if not, send us an email at international.ca or international@nbcc.ca. As well, you can check our international page as well. So we'll have some frequently asked questions there as well. So before I go, I do want to remind you all again, registration is upcoming on August 18th. And as Kathleen said, we're very excited for you to join us in this fall, whether it be online or through Blended on campus a couple days a week. We are very excited for you to be here, and regardless of the pandemic, it's going to be a fantastic school year, and we're very excited to have you join us. So thank you all so much. Kathleen, it was great seeing you again today.
You too, Brittany.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, you all have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll chat soon.
Take care. Bye.